In the previous video, I ventured the now empty ghost town of Tanglin Halt. While exploring, I did feel eerie, but not for all of the blocks. As seen from the video, I felt the most creeped out while exploring block 55 and especially the playground area. It just felt off. Now I did not realize it at first, but there are artifacts that I did not see while exploring in person but was captured on video. Before starting the video, let's briefly talk about Tanglin Halt. Despite its name, it is located at Commonwealth. Tanglin Halt Estate was one of the first few HDB estates that were built in Singapore in 1962, even before Singapore became Singapore 3 years later, and in 2003, it was announced that the estate was going to be redeveloped, and it is said that by the end of 2024, some parts of the estate are going to be demolished to make way for redevelopment. Each estate has its paranormal stories, and I will tell a story shared by Kara Wong from a website called Supernatural Confessions. We first moved into a higher floor of that block and lived there a couple of months before the real estate agent told us that a floor below us in the same block was selling for cheap. Plus, it was a corner unit. Naturally, my dad's interest was piqued, and within months, we had yet moved to another home. On hindsight, no free meal in the world, and cheap houses usually come at a nasty cost. In the beginning, everything started off small. Incidents that weren't so big that you could brush it off as your imagination or coincidence. As I mentioned, we lived at the corner unit, and because it was a common corridor, when watching TV, we would be facing the corridor, and without fail, at 8 PM every night, a dark shadow would fly past our corridor and disappear into the wall. My mom chided us and said it must have been a bird of some sort. As I got older, I started hanging out later and even took up a job at a fast food chain. Some days I had to wake up really early, and on one morning while I was headed to the bathroom, I heard someone whisper my name softly in my ear and followed by a laughter. I knew for a fact that nobody else was awake in the house at that time, and instinctively I shouted, "Mom, I forgot my towel, can you come here now?" All the while hearing that god-awful eerie laughter. One day I got home at about 7 to find the house dark, so I assumed nobody was home yet. I headed to my room and found it strange that the room door was shut and locked. Tried the knob several times and heard noises in the room, as though someone was shifting in bed. Thinking that it was my sister that had fallen asleep, I tried knocking on the door loudly and calling out to her to wake up. Thinking that my sis had fallen asleep, I tried knocking on the door loudly and calling out to her to wake her up, but she didn't answer. I decided to watch TV and waited for her to wake up. Imagine my shock when my parents and sister came home 2 hours later and my sister went to the room and said, "Oi, why you close the door for?" and opened it and went inside. On one occasion, my friend slept over, and the next day, she said she couldn't sleep because someone was standing at the doorway staring at us the entire night, and she was paralyzed in fear and couldn't reach out to wake me up. On another occasion, a friend of mine stayed the night, and in the middle of the night, he recalled his hands in horror because someone had scratched his palm really hard. He did not want to wake my sister and I up, so he only told me about it the next morning and showed his palm, of which there were 4 very long, obvious gashes. When we moved, we also inherited some furniture from the previous owners. One of it was an old cupboard in the bedroom that had a lock and key. We tested the cupboard when we moved in, and it seemed to be in good condition, so we kept it. Imagine our shock when the cupboard would automatically creak open every night when our lights were off. It didn't matter how you locked it, jarred it, wedged it. The next morning, it would be opened anyway. Now, orbs in videos and photos have been a thing since they existed. It can be dismissed as light being reflected off a speck of dust that just so happens to fly past the camera. Another side to this argument is paranormal. It is said that an orb that was captured on footage are the spirits of the dead. We don't know if the spirits are malicious or not, and it is up to you to decide if you want to believe in it. But what I felt while exploring made me believe that the latter might be true. So the first orb I encountered actually occurred when I arrived at block 55. It appeared from the pillar and it flew to the left side of the screen. It all happened really quickly and I did not notice this in person and also while editing the video. I only noticed it after someone pointed it out when the video was already on YouTube. The next one gave me the creeps. As mentioned earlier, it felt really eerie to be at the playground, as if someone or something was there watching my every move. It does not help that there was a fragrance present at the time of recording, and that fragrance lingered on while I was exploring the rest of block 55. The orb appeared after I have recited a prayer, and I felt really off at that point in time, and whatever or whoever was there gave me the chills, and I felt really uneasy just being at the playground in general. This one was really creepy. At that point in time while exploring, I suddenly kept quiet as I felt a really strong glare, as if someone was watching me intently. It was a really weird feeling, and till this day I can't quite grasp that feeling. Now, the moment I felt that way, an orb was spotted beside me. Was it malicious? I don't know. All I know was that I was being watched and I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. While exploring blocks 40 to 48, I really did not feel much except that one moment where I felt like someone was watching me. The exploration there was not as nerve-wracking as when I toured and walked around block 55. The amount of orbs, if you want to see it that way of course, was concentrated at that block. I was genuinely surprised to not find a single anomaly while exploring one of the flats that was open, and at the same time quite horrified that the feelings of being watched matched that of the anomalies found on camera. When there were times where I felt like I was being watched, an orb appeared on camera. I do not know what to think of this except that I was not alone at Tanglin Halt estate.